This is what the psychedelics industry needs. It needs to move from the back of the napkin math to like actual math, right? Because we hear the same
Correct.
things with like compass pathways as well, right? If you just speak to some of the analysts, they'll talk about, okay, therapy session, $15,000. There's X number of patients worldwide. There's millions of them. If companies can just do 20,000 a year, they're going to have like $1 billion in revenue, and that may be the case. But right now they have zero.
Hey everyone, welcome to our latest Trade to Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales. We're going to dive into cannabis in just a moment. We'll make sure that we get this podcast up on time and it's not a 25-minute delay like Governor DeSantis. What happened there? Crazy, insane. We want to talk about him and potentially the announcement with him running for president in the United States of America and what kind of effect that'll have on the rec market within the Florida market. So let's bring in the guys. Anthony Verrill, millennial entrepreneur and host of the Dales Report. Good to see you, sir.
How's it going? It was interesting to see yesterday the launch with DeSantis and Musk and legacy media heads such as yourself dunking on them, thinking it wasn't a useful medium and event. I thought it was a smashing success.
It
There was
was.
over
Man, it Trump
400,000 concurrent viewers.
That was great, but I love how Trump just jumped all over that saying, "What a mess." I'm not surprised based on the 25-minute delay, but,
I
at the
mean,
end of the day, like you said, there's a lot of people that involved. Before we get into that, Benjamin A. Smith, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you guys. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Yeah, so anyway, back to your point, Anthony, it was firestorm, obviously, on Twitter to begin with, but for the most part, I think it was a huge success given the amount of audience size that logged on.
yeah, I mean, I thought it was masterful. I mean, I thought it was a great medium. It did numbers, and then he was on Fox News right after at 8 o'clock on primetime with Trey Gowdy. So I mean, he had his hip tech announcement,
Yep,
and then right after he segues into the old boomer who actually votes in the GOP audience of Fox News. It would have been Tucker Carlson that was interviewing him if he was still at the network. It's funny to see. I mean, you've got DeSantis announcing his presidency on Twitter. You've got Tucker on Twitter. You've got Ben Shapiro now on Twitter. Twitter's becoming a megaphone for the conservative
it
movement.
is.
I want to see the left, sensible Democrats that have a message that resonates, start to use Twitter. I really don't want to see Twitter become a conservative megaphone and just the complete opposite of what it was. But I think time will tell. But I thought it was a great success overall.
Yeah. Well, let's. I want to talk about off the top just the impact that the Florida rec market will have with his announcement. Governor Ron DeSantis announcing he's running for president. But first, as usual, all views in the Trade of Black podcast, the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or guests as investment advice. And the views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational or not investment advice. So, Ben, we'll begin with cannabis. And as Anthony and I were talking, Governor Ron DeSantis, who I'm sure had better days, but for the most size, the audience was big last night where he announced that he's been running for president. How do you think basically Governor DeSantis running for the presidential office in 2024 will impact the Florida rec initiative?
I'm not sure it'll affect it all that much. He's not really directly involved. The ballot initiatives, they have to get a certain number of signatures, and if they go above that amount, then it can go by state referendum or a constitution. It can be presented to the voters on a ballot initiative. So I don't think DeSantis is involved. However, indirectly, I wonder if him running for the presidency will somehow or possibly distract, like sending his attorney general after cannabis, with like she's doing to the Florida Supreme Court. I wonder if him being distracted will prevent him from maybe looking the other way and sending his people to sort of rally against it, because I know he's not the biggest fan of cannabis.
Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters, to be completely honest. People forget very quickly that the growth that we experienced in the cannabis sector from 2016 to 2020. I mean, Donald Trump was in the White House and he did put Jeff Sessions as AG during that time. It had absolutely no bearing on the sector. Jeff tried, Jeff failed. It's still to the states. I don't think that DeSantis going into the presidential race is going to have any impact on Florida. I also don't think that if DeSantis gets into the White House, it's going to have any effect on the national status of cannabis.
One of our playlists is Where Are They Now? And man, Jeff Sessions, there's a name you have not heard in a long time. But yeah,
That angry son of a bitch is probably hanging out and wherever he is, just enjoying life. He doesn't have to do his job anymore, but he was the bane of our
brutal.
existence for a very long
Oof,
time.
oof.
I
That's
mean,
a
he was a scary dude on the
yeah,
national stage, and he was not our friend. But
yeah.
nothing happened.
As much as we say cannabis is still very much in the first inning, but when you hear names like that, it gives you an idea as to like how
Yeah.
long we've been talking about this space. That's for sure. Let's switch now to Slang Worldwide, a company that always grabs a lot of investors' attention, both good and bad. So many people wanting this company to succeed, but at times it appears they can't get out of their own way. But besides all that, Ben, what are your thoughts on their strong earnings and increased gross margins? Very impressive to say the least.
Yeah, I thought so. Slang had been off my radar for quite a while. I'd been
For
following it
many.
for 4 years ago, since inception, when it listed on the CSE, and obviously it had some pretty bad times. The vape crisis really
Yeah.
did some damage to it because one of their biggest products is the O vape pen, which is one of the big sellers, and that got hit during the vape crisis, and then the cannabis market sort of imploded, demand for ancillary products. So it had been basically burning investors nonstop for, the better part of 4 years. So it'd been off the radar. But by chance, I looked at the last earnings report, and they produced an operational cash flow quarter, and their gross margins increased to 48%, I believe it was. And I followed the latest news release, and again, another operational cash flow quarter. Margins increased to 52%, I believe, and they saw the top five highest volume accounts deliver a 30 to 60 percent year over year growth with their products. So it looks very impressive on the face of it. There's not a lot of liquidity in this. Like once you're in, you're in. A lot of people have sort of
Good
given up
point.
on this company, but it's good to see like a tier 3 company produce really excellent results and get a little love. Traded over 1.2 million shares yesterday as well. So I like it. It's probably worth following. I don't know if I'd go all in, still risky, but it's good to see a tier 3 do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Significant year. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was gonna say I was actually pleasantly surprised when Ben brought it up in one of the pre-production meetings the other day. I think it's a diamond in the rough. I think it could easily be a
Mm,
very, very powerfully returning stock. That's not financial advice, and I'm not buying it right now. But I think it's got the legs that if we start to see reform and they grow, I mean, what's the market cap right now? 5 mil. Um, they're uh,
so
they're
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
high. They're
one
on sale.
6.5.
so
Okay, so
one
6.5 million. They have 11.5 million on the balance sheet, I believe. Their cash
Yeah.
only dwindled about $300,000 last quarter, and they don't have a lot of debt, so it's not like they're buried. And they have a
No.
capital light model. So if they can survive this, if they can get 280E on the back of this to improve their earnings quality, if their if they grow their dispensary assets in Vermont, because now they're involved on that side as well, from the purchase of high fidelity. Yeah, I mean, you could be looking at a diamond in the rough. There's no, maybe an 8 or 10 cents, which relative to where the share price is now doesn't
Yeah.
sound like much, but that's that you can do the math there.
that has been their story for a long time. Diamond in the rough. That's to my point. Everybody wants this company to succeed so much, but as you guys said, that if you like this company, once you're in low liquidity, you're in for. I would think you're holding this for a while, right?
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, it's nothing that you can go block trade and get out of a larger position. Which I mean, if we're getting in a position, will probably take size. So I mean, liquidity is key. I mean, liquidity is your best friend, and it doesn't have it
Yeah.
right now.
So, curious to get your thoughts on why they had strong dispensary sales in Vermont. Did you guys get any feedback based off of that? Anthony, I'll start with you.
No, um, I don't know.
No,
I don't
and
know about their. Yeah, I know everything about the company, but the Vermont operations.
yeah,
yeah. They used to be in ancillaries. They have a very, like I talked about, the old vape pen, which is one of their top selling products. It's a vaporizer. They sell cartridges. They sell ancillary products. But last year, I believe, early last year, they acquired High Fidelity, which was
yes,
a dispensary operations vertically integrated in Vermont. And people sort of pass up the Vermont market like it's nothing, and they obviously
Huge
they don't.
tourism market,
Yeah,
right?
huge
Is it?
tourism, and I think
Huge.
BDS or some analytics companies are projecting $250 million
Yeah.
in sales yearly, basically. So
Damn.
I mean, there's a market there, and there's not a lot of players. And now they became the biggest player with the acquisition of High Fidelity. So I think there's plans to to put other dispensaries. I know there's one in Burlington, I believe it is. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe they'll get 3 or 4 dispensaries in there, and along with their other business, if things hit the right way with safe and 280E, you could have something here.
Yeah, we used to
Yeah.
cover the company going back year and a half ago, but I remember this acquisition with High Fidelity. But yeah, limited licenses and a huge tourist market, which is why it was so lucrative for them. Because on paper, Vermont doesn't really garner a lot of attention. But I would needless to say, when I saw not so much what the population of the state is, but how many people are coming in for tourism, that's what made sense, and everything kind of added up. Let's switch now to psychedelics. Big PR announcement yesterday involving Numinus Wellness. What'd you guys think, Ben, of their plan to align business initiatives for future approval of MDMA assisted therapy? This was a big initiative based off of that.
Yeah, it was a big initiative. It was good to see them outline their strategy on and put it as a public press release, because that showed me that they are anticipating that MDMA assisted therapy will get approval. Um, so they're gearing up for that. They got the Numinous network, which is to train clinicians to get up to. I believe they want to train up to 15,000. I believe the number is. They're also setting the groundwork for insurance coverage, which is going to be very, very big
Yep.
for therapy, because these sessions are going to cost 10 to 15,000 a piece. So they're getting all the groundwork here, and it was good to see that PR again, because they are anticipating approval from the FDA sometime next year. And if that comes through, their business model is going to change materially, because they go from just talk sessions with non-narcotics and ketamine sessions to now MDMA, right? So a true psychedelic, big ticket item, and a huge need. Millions of people literally in the United States have post PTSD. So good to see. Let's hope it happens.
Yeah, a lot of people that I've been speaking to within the industry say, like, as far as approval from the FDA, it's a foregone conclusion. The big issue, the big question is the rollout. That's the big issue, because yes, it's
Yeah.
one thing to get approved from the FDA, but what does the rollout look like? And there's going to be a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't be better for them to be announcing this. I mean, it's good to see their strategy, and they're focused on where the puck's going. They're not focused where the puck is. I mean, I think you see a lot of fluff in the psychedelic space. I mean, you see a lot of companies and clinics in general doubling down on things like ketamine and TMS and like complementary things that fit the clinics. I mean, I love seeing Peyton's laser focused and just foresight as to figure out the what the business strategy and what the infrastructure needs to look like for the rollout of MDMA, even before it comes. So it's really positive to see.
Ben, our
And people
Fort
shouldn't
Water.
discount too, like their therapy sessions for the training as part of the Numinous network. They're charging what,
Yeah,
3,000, 3,500, somewhere around that
2,500. Yeah.
number. And if they can get up to that 15,000 mark, and patients trained, or sorry, clinicians trained over the next 18 months, we're looking at a material revenue opportunity there.
yeah.
Obviously, it's not the key part of their business model, but hopefully, that's revenue that can keep them going, and we'll look at it on the balance sheet.
Well, in a podcast earlier this week, Peyton Nyquist was outlining to me that there's 14 million people right now, as I've said in previous podcasts, with PTSD. They serviced 20,000 people last quarter alone with their current model. If they basically service 30,000 of those 14 million people, it equates to $450 million per year. And that to me, is a staggering number, but you've got to build the infrastructure. And I think that's going to be the big question moving forward, is how do we make it happen? These numbers are great. They're lofty, but you got to make sure that you can execute it, because like I said, that's a huge number that's going to become rushing in all at once.
Yeah, this is what the psychedelics industry needs. It needs to move from the back of the napkin math to like actual math, right? Because we hear the same
Correct.
things with like compass pathways as well, right? If you just speak to some of the analysts, they'll talk about, okay, therapy session, $15,000. There's X number of patients worldwide. There's millions of them. If companies can just do 20,000 a year, they're going to have like $1 billion in revenue, and that may be the case. But right now they have zero, being in the early
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
So I think
And
once
it,
we get some
yeah.
signs that things are progressing to a point where this will actually translate into real revenue and some of those numbers can materialize, then we have something.
Yeah. If you want to actually see that podcast we had with Peyton, it's actually in the caption below here in this video. Basically, the interview that I had with him earlier this week, he outlined some really compelling things. So if you want to check that out, like I said, just click on the link within the caption right now. Outlined also in the podcast, readouts for maps could happen within the next 30 days. And I get the impression that these readouts could be as strong, if not stronger, than the first half of the phase 3 trial. Do you guys think that's been realistic that we could see readouts within the next 30 days?
Well, I think if anybody's in the know, that would be Peyton, with their association with Maps. So I'm going to take his word for it. I know I've heard other rumblings that's pretty soon as well, or it's expected to be this summer, or early fall. So I'm going to take Peyton's word for it, and I've kind of view this as sort of the clincher, right? Like
Yeah.
if they can get another confirmatory study proving what the other studies in phase 3 have shown for MDMA safety, really strong efficacy. I don't know how the FDA can not approve this, right, and follow
Yeah.
in Australia's footsteps. So, fingers crossed. If there's a good result here, I think it's almost like how can the FDA not approve?
Well, some of the institutions that are giving feedback for many executives within this industry is that A, they need to see a catalyst announcement for the industry. And then B, once that happens, a clear understanding of pathway to revenue. Anthony, what do you think? We have potential FDA approval for MDMA and MAPS readouts around the corner. What do you think is the catalyst moment that could make a turn for this industry?
I mean, I would argue that MDMA is that catalyst
Yeah.
if it gets passed. I mean, you just did the back of the napkin math, and I mean, we're looking at a $250 million revenue potential for Numinus. I mean, pretty easily, as far as their patient count goes. And I mean, I hate to really distill patients down into dollar signs, like they do in big pharma and traditional medicine, because I mean, these are people that genuinely need help. But I mean, the total addressable market here is huge, based
Yeah.
on MDMA alone. That being said, I mean, I think that us and the industry especially, have always gotten excited, predicting these catalysts and looking at these catalysts to come. They've all been sell the news events, up until now.
Yeah.
So hopefully this time it's different. But I really do think that MDMA, can be that catalyst to really move forward and at least get capital flowing back into the sector from an institutional
Yeah.
perspective.
When we look at this industry and leaders in the space like Compass Pathways, why do you think Compass is trading at a fresh low despite the growing interest in psychedelic therapy, Ben?
I think a lot of it is what Anthony just said. Catalysts are, this is a biotech industry, and biotech, it doesn't matter what segment of it, the catalysts are very slow. They're glacial. Things take a long time to progress. So you have a
Great word.
situation where a lot of investors, they know that, there's not a major catalyst, or they don't expect like a phase 2 or phase 3 readout for another 18 months down the road. It's like, why hold this? Right.
Yeah.
Especially in a rising rate environment where
Yep.
the discount cash flow model, weakens the case to hold the stock and when there's rising rates. So
Yeah.
it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's just that, and it's not exclusive to psychedelics. I think you see that in a lot of other biotech companies where if there's no catalyst
Yeah.
there, there's no reason to hold, and then there's a trickle down effect, right? So you don't see a huge drop. You just see money exiting until a catalyst is more forthcoming.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is the big boys like Atai and Compass, which are few and far between. I mean, if you believe in them, if you've done your diligence and you fundamentally understand that some of their science can get across the finish line, valuation doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You'll go pick it back up closer to the finish line, and then I mean, you're talking about meteoric returns as far as an ROI is concerned.
Yeah,
Forgot
but
to
you're gonna
mention.
see your money sort of like, you want a return on your money,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
your
yeah.
money invested. You don't
That's
necessarily
why,
wanna
but
wait.
yeah.
yeah, 6 months until there's a real catalyst. Because biotech, the catalysts are
Oh
very
no.
telegraphed and defined, right? So you
Yeah.
know that there's not going to be anything to move the stock in between, like their phase 3 results, really.
Yeah.
So you want to put money to work. You don't want to, you're like Anthony said, you'll just buy it 20% up or 30% up because it's a potential 20 or 30 exit, right? In the meantime, you want
Yeah.
your money to work, and you know funds sort of tend to drip out of biotech in front of a catalyst when it's a
No, and
long
I
time
think you're
away.
dead on. Yeah, I think you're dead on. You couldn't be more right in that regard. I mean, if there's no catalyst, there's no action coming in the near term. Get the hell out, put the capital to work somewhere else, and then come back when the time frames compress.
So that's the way you guys would play this industry. And again, this is not investment advice, that it's hot when it's hot, but it's short lived, and then you're on to something else.
That's the way
Yeah.
I'm playing it. I have zero exposure to this industry. I have
Mm.
zero exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm waiting. Like, I love the industry. I love the industry potential. I cover it. I follow it, but I don't have any exposure right now until the technicals tell me that it's time to get in, right? Because
Yeah.
all that information is known, and it should be reflected in the price theoretically once we get closer to actionable activity and price action.
Yep.
And there's not a huge defining catalyst, I don't think, for the next few months, at least till MDMA gets approved, but that's not expected till in 2024. So in the meantime,
Wait.
I don't see any
So the
phase 3 results and all that. So I think it's just going to be a lot of waiting right now and a lot of sort of dead money, if I'm being honest.
So if we get a MAPS readout within 30 days, and let's say they're really strong, you don't think it'll move much?
No, I don't think so, because we already have the map 1 data, map 2 data. It's already been strong, right? So this would be it's not new data. It's more confirmatory data of what has already been put out there. So it will be a clincher. I think it will help the FDA make that, drive the nail in the coffin to make that final decision and to go for it. It's going to be helpful, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily like a huge market mover.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah,
pathway to revenue model. Help me understand that. I do want to
it's like
mention
safe.
too,
It's like
safe.
safe.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah,
Exactly.
FDA approval is going to
until
be a big.
something's signed. Yeah, until something's signed, I don't see anybody coming back in.
Okay. Let's switch now to tech and Nvidia. Those that bought this stock before earnings are buying bone-in ribeyes this weekend and having a party. Wow. Anthony,
Yeah.
what did you think of their massive Q1 financial results and beating the consensus EPS?
Yeah, so the results were good. The reason why the stock shot up is they guided up for the next quarter.
Yep.
I think they took it from 7 billion to 11 billion
Wow.
in for revenue for the quarter, which is insane. Nvidia are around $1 trillion market cap right now. It's a party. I would be lying if I didn't say that I was a little bit nervous that tech stocks, especially ones around AI, are performing like cryptocurrencies with all that's going on. We've got the debt ceiling talk. We've got geopolitics. We've got a lot of things working against us. And tech stocks, which is really risk off behavior, are cruising. A lot of names are up 100% year to date. That being said, I mean, Nvidia, if they do hit this revenue target next quarter, I mean, that puts the company in a completely different stratosphere.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they didn't put that out without knowing that they're going to get damn near close to that, and which forced the re-rating and which forced the 30% move pre-market today.
Yeah. Well, Ben, do you think they can continue that run despite, like Anthony said, some pretty lofty price sale ratios and a market cap near $1 trillion?
I don't know if these ratios matter all that much, to be honest. When you have
I know
to
they
that
don't.
extent, and you have like
They don't.
15 upgrades and all that, it's sort of like we're in silly land. Sort of like where maybe not to the same degree, but GameStop or AMC, it's obviously not
Yeah.
that. But we're at a place where
No.
metrics at what 280 price of sales going in, I think it was, right? So now we're probably like close to 400 price of sales, and even when you beat guidance, that strikes me as a little a little expensive, or more than a little expensive. So I don't know if that matters
Yeah.
right now, but I mean, I think this all justifies all the hype we've been hearing around AI, and some people have been coming out and say, AI is bound to disappoint, this and that. But this was a real indicator that companies are really they're buying chips and they're buying hardware
Yeah.
and stuff like that in advance to advance their AI strategies and the processing that they need to get that. So I mean, this was a very, very like a statement report almost that AI is definitely not going away.
Yeah, and I mean it's also an indictment on just the world progressing technologically. All of those technologies we're finding out run on Nvidia chips. Whether it's blockchain, whether it's high powered computing, whether it's AI, they are all running the backbone via Nvidia
Yeah.
through
Because
these
they're graphics
machines.
chips, aren't they, Anthony? They're more in the
Yeah,
graphics
I
chip.
mean, they are the GPUs. I mean, on my computer, I've got a 3090 RX, which was the best technology you could have last year, which is now outdated. I needed that so I could have the computing power to be running crypto nodes on my rig. So yeah, Nvidia's got their hands in all of the real high growth industries, and really the future of technology is being powered by Nvidia, and it has been
Wow.
for some time. I mean,
Yeah.
when computer games started to come out in like the late '90s, early 2000s, graphics were really getting where they needed to go. Like Nvidia have been a household name for the past 25 years,
Yeah.
as far as those input product goes, and they're not going to get any smaller, obviously.
Yeah. So I guess the question needs to be asked: do you see American Nvidia shareholders this weekend ripping magnums and driving golf carts through par three sand traps?
I mean, you had Brad Gerstner on, which is one of the only guys that I actually listen to that are on CNBC. He runs a tech hedge fund. He bought Nvidia back in December, and he came out today and said that he thinks it's just getting started as far as as far as everything goes. So I
Jeepers.
mean, yeah, you've got Steve Cohen, Dan Loeb, Michael Burry, these guys like Gerstner that are coming out and saying that AI it's the mega trend. So on that thesis, do you think that Nvidia could get to a $2 trillion valuation and start to be in the same conversations as the Microsofts of the world, as the Apples of the world? I don't think so. I don't think it's justified, as they don't really have any service-based revenue or real strong recurring revenue.
Yeah.
That's consumer driven. They're more of like a picks and shovel play in these mega trends. So, I mean, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. My gut tells me to short it here, versus go long, but I'm not going to do neither. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting to watch.
I smell bottle service.
Yeah, I mean,
You
yeah,
know
there was
what?
some
Some
guy
people got
yesterday.
burned on this. I put a
Oh,
tweet out
dude,
yesterday
yeah,
with somebody with a very popular post on TradingView and titled "Nvidia: The Short of the Century." Right. So you
yeah,
gotta. So there's about $9 million of short money, that $1 billion of short money that is underwater just on today's trade. Right after what happened, it's up
yeah.
26%. So you got to be careful with this stuff. I wouldn't be touching this short. I don't go chasing, so I
No,
don't play long. I'm just watching from the sideline.
All right.
yeah. There was also a guy that bought 2,000 call options yesterday for around $120,000.
What?
They were worth 5.5 million at the open today.
Wow, is that Nancy
Wow.
Pelosi by any chance? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a play on it was a play on AI. So I could, I mean, that's why I went long. I didn't see some explosive move. I didn't see some crazy re-rating to the next quarter. I just thought that they were going to have exciting language around AI. It would hit tap 315, tap 318, like places it's gone. I didn't think it was going to hockey stick. If you played that thesis, you probably played positive in earnings. If you're a contrarian and you think that AI is a bubble, you probably were short.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting trade.
Yeah.
It's going to captivate the news cycle for the next couple of weeks.
wait,
Well,
wait,
it'll
wait.
be a
Speaking of hockey stick, I have to congratulate you on Florida Panthers sweeping. And what Shad described yesterday in internal text, he's like, that was the closest sweep that he's ever seen. Like just one goal games, couple went into OT. Unbelievable. The Florida Panthers story this
Can you
season.
imagine, like, 5 seconds left? I missed the end of the game. What was the
Yeah,
penalty
yeah.
call that got Florida the power play?
I didn't even watch it. I didn't watch the third period. I went
I'm
to
like, I
sleep.
wanted who blows a whistle that late in the game? That
Yeah,
sucks.
I'm
But
gonna go to game one, I think, in Vegas.
well, I was
If
gonna
there's a
ask you
sweep
earlier,
tonight.
you were using a lot of puck terms, and I'm like, this guy's got Florida Panther mania right now. I'm sure Sunrise
Oh,
is loving this.
if they're gonna vote apparently on when the Stanley Cup Finals are gonna start if the Knights sweep tonight. so they'll start it earlier. They've got it
I
scheduled to
would.
start June. Yeah, they've got it scheduled to start June
Imagine the
8th. Yeah, which
you
is
imagine
crazy.
the Nuggets waiting 10
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
10
it's a
days.
long
But
time. But yeah, once they figure it out, I might be going to Vegas for Game 1.
Are you buying tickets in Florida?
Oh yeah, I'll be at
What do
every
you
game.
what would
Um,
tickets go
yeah.
for? Any idea what they're going for a cup final game?
I haven't looked yet. If I had to guess, I mean the seats that I'm going to want to sit in probably $600 to $800.
6,800.
Yeah.
I remember when the Raptors played Golden State back in 2019. It was cheaper for fans from Toronto to fly to San Francisco, buy a ticket there, and fly back, get a hotel than it was to buy a ticket in Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto tickets are crazy. I got tickets to a Leafs game one time. In the playoffs, I think it was the second round. It was Toronto and Boston, or it might have been the first round since you guys always get knocked out in the first round. But it was Toronto versus Boston, 15 rows behind the bench. It was 1,500 Canadian a seat.
Hey, I lived in Toronto one time. I'm a Detroit guy.
I mean, that's my favorite hockey team of all growing up. I idolize those guys.
Toronto is very
Um,
much the Leafs are owned by two competing telecom companies, and they are very much trying to compete with American telecom companies. Not compete; they have their own market, but they're looking business opportunities of that size. And the fees that Canadians pay for monthly programs related to their cell phones are through the roof, some of the highest rates in the world. And with that, it has a domino effect with a lot of their sports properties as well. Like if you want to buy upper bowl, mid-season, 10 rows up, you're looking at well over $200 a ticket. It's crazy.
what?
Yes, it's crazy.
A Panthers ticket
And the
would cost
whole
you $35.
Yeah, and the whole lower bowl is super quiet because all the guys from Bay Street are down underneath the Platinum Lounges having drinks. They don't roll back into their seats till about 8 minutes left in the period. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah,
corporate
I mean
down below.
it's funny because you guys might not realize it, but Americans when they think hockey, they think of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Do they?
They always assume that it's like an elite hockey institution. The Leafs, and I mean
Kind of like the
they've
Red
been
Army, right?
terrible.
Right, Ben?
Yeah, they've been terrible for some time now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, we're going to check back in later this weekend. We're going to get you on a long weekend to do another Traded Black as we recap the week. But needless to say, a good long weekend coming up for Nvidia shareholders. But appreciate the
It'll be
update
nice.
and good takeaway from all this and some good insight. Leave a comment below. Let us know any companies you want us to discuss. Yes, I know, Brett Sloan, we got to talk about Sundial. I'll get to that. But any more, let us know and we'll get to it. Gents, have a good day. Let's keep in touch.
Perfect.
See you guys.
Talk soon.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.